Hey everyone, number 88 on my 100 greatest songs of all time is Northern Sky by Nick Drake. Um, if you don't know who Nick Drake is, he was a folk singer in the 70s, and he released 3 albums, and his life was pretty sad. And I read a book about Nick Drake, and a biography by, I think his name is Richard Morton Jack, and it was just such a sad story about a guy who was supremely talented, and but mental health was getting his mental health, his poor mental health was getting in the way of pretty much everything, and kind of pushing him towards a place where, unfortunately, he took his own life. And obviously, it's a tale that's been told before when it comes to talented artists, that that they have to deal with a lot of mental health issues. And the book stood out for me, and his story stood out for me, and I reached out to the writer at the time. But when I was doing my podcast, because it was a discussion on mental health, obviously, and he didn't have time he was doing the rounds of his book tour and stuff, and he's just had taken on too much work, so I never got to talk to him. And it was a shame, because it would have been very interesting to talk to him about that idea of how he saw Nick Drake's talent, and how Nick Drake struggled to deal with his own talent. And he wanted to be out and about, but he didn't want a gig, and it was like this thing that was pushing against him and pushing for him. And I got his 3 albums a number of years ago. This first album I got was Pink Moon, and it's my favorite album of Nick Drake's. But after listening to 3 albums and starting to do this project, I said, like, Nick Drake's he could probably have a couple of songs in this top 100. And I really thought about, like, what could be the number one, or what could be my favorite Nick Drake song. And I picked Northern Sky in the end. It's got a kind of cool backstory about, obviously, he was struggling at the time, and he kind of befriended his producer, Joe Boyd, who also has a great book that I read, and how he managed to get the songs and the pieces out of him. But curiously enough, John Cale of the Velvet Underground wanted to play with Nick Drake, so they set this up, and he wanted to play like organ and piano and Celeste on the tracks. And initially, apparently, Nick Drake was reluctant to add that. He wanted it just to be like just an acoustic, straightforward, him piano, him guitar. Just he wanted to do all the work. But eventually, it happened. And the arrangement of this song is absolutely gorgeous. But it's funny about the chords, right? So I'll play just a little bit of the first verse, okay? And what Nick Drake had a weird tuning thing going on, like Joni Mitchell does, and I don't have the guitar tune like that. And Nick Drake has a capo on the 3rd fret. Again, I don't have it on the 3rd fret, so, because I want to play a little bit on the guitar, and then I want to play a small little bit on the piano of this beautiful little piece in the middle that's kind of a breakdown piece before it kicks off. The song kicks off again, but just the first verse. So, like, if I can get the lyrics up here, I'll try and sing a bit. Now, it's very low for my voice. The album, like I said, is a bit higher than this. So it starts off just, I got the strings on the acoustic, by the way, and it sounds beautiful. But it just starts off a D, E minor 7. I never felt magic crazy as this. I never saw moons, knew the meaning of the sea. I never held emotion in the palm of my hand. I felt sweet breezes in the top of the tree, but now we're here, right in my northern sky. And, like, it's so simple, but there's a shift between, it's just A suspended 4 and A major, and this happens again later in the song. I'll play that in a second. But throughout Nick Drake's work, he has these moments of absolute genius that made him the genius that people think he is now, or look back at now and maybe didn't see it at the time. This one of the sad things about an artist from the 70s. You're going to see videos and things on YouTube of them performing, but there's nothing of Nick Drake, because he didn't perform that much. And when he did, obviously, it wasn't the time that everybody had access to a camera. So we just have the albums. We don't have any video recordings of the man himself. And like, obviously you're kind of missing out because you don't get to see the kind of, not to sound too hippie-ish, but you don't get to see the soul of the man performing the song and how he played it on stage and how he like puts his songs across and sings his songs. And some of his lyrics are so beautiful. Like it's not like, this is post hippie, but he's not too far away from it in what he sings about. And like I suggest you go listen to his best of if you want to just pick. But those 3 albums are absolutely incredible. And like what he does, what I wanted to do with the piano really was what he switches from D and E minor. Sorry, so it's D, E minor 7. So he switches from that into the chorus. He goes D to a G6. So it's like that. So this is a regular G minor, and he adds a 6 to it. So he adds the E. So it's like it's only simple kind of switching and adding little notes in here and there, but like it makes so much of a difference. I just think the simplicity of the idea of the song. The arrangement's a little bit more complicated because there's a little bits and pieces going on, and the drive of the song kind of drops off for that piece there where they played the D to G6, and then it comes racing back in, and it's typical of Nick Drake. I think a lot of his songs remind me of the morning or the evening. It's like this. And I know that probably sounds stupid and I probably can't explain it correctly, but a lot of his songs, like Pink Moon, it makes sense that would remind you of the evening. But this reminds me of something like the morning, the idea of waking up. And there's like, the song kicks off the way it's supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. And you're awake, and then there's this little lull. Like, and I always find that like that little lull comes in the morning sometimes, especially if you get up early like I do, and you hit about 9 o'clock and you kind of think, Jesus, it feels like it's about 3 o'clock in the day. But then that sudden rush of Nick Drake and John Cale coming back in, it opens it out again. It's beautiful. Like, and like that's such a hard thing to do in music, and like there is a number of songs to do it, but it's a hard thing to pull off because a lot of songs they do it. It's kind of contrived, but this is just opens it up again to this beautiful chords, and like that. Just want to point out, like, so that if you couldn't hear it properly on the piano, so it's like, and then the G is like, so it leaves the E in there at the bottom, so D and then G6. It's such a weird little, because the regular G is like that. He goes, it's tiny and it's probably picky and I'm just being a bit, but it sounds so beautiful, and the whole song is beautiful, and the lyrics like are just gorgeous and kind of a love song of sorts. And if you read the book that I was talking about, he doesn't speak on love too much, but he had a very tough life, but he granted us 3 albums of just absolute gems. And so yeah, Northern Sky. Thanks for watching, and see you soon. Bye.